నమస్కారం. డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ విద్యార్థిని విద్యార్థులకు స్వాగతం. ఈనాటి మన కార్యక్రమంలో
Hello everyone. Let us learn how English sounds. This is a video lesson on behalf of Dr. Ambedkar Open University. Are you all ready? Alright, let's see what are the different English sounds we have. The English alphabet, as you all know, has 26 letters. But when you're talking about sounds, it's not 26 at all. You have 44. Well, these sounds can be divided into consonants and vowels. Consonant sounds again can be either voiced or voiceless. Vowel sounds, on the other hand, are always voiced. Let us now understand how do we articulate these different sounds using our organs of speech. What do we see in front of us? We see our mouth and the nasal cavity. Well, when we look at the mouth, what do we see out here? We see the two lips, and then you move on to the teeth, and right behind you have the teeth ridge, and then the hard palate. This portion is known as the roof of the mouth, where you call it as the hard palate, followed by the soft palate, and then you have this hanging out loosely known as uvula. All these help us in articulating different sounds in English. Similarly, if you move to the lower jaw, you have the lips again, and then the teeth, followed by, this is the tongue. Tongue, if you divide it into different portions or parts, you'd find right here the blade of the tongue, which is comprising of the tip as well. Then you move on to the front of the tongue, followed by the back of the tongue. Well, if you go further down, this is where you have the vocal cords, and then you talk about the pharynx, the foot pipe, and the windpipe, as you say. Let's move out of this and talk about how we pronounce each of these sounds. Let's look at consonants. Right. Before we move on to consonants, voiceless sounds. What do I mean by voiceless sounds? That is, we talked about vocal cords, remember? The ones which are located in your neck region. Whenever the vocal cords vibrate, that's known as a voiced sound. And when there is no vibration of vocal cords, it creates a voiceless sound. Moving on to the consonant sounds, you can refer to your lesson which talks about organs of speech, and then moves on to the next one where you have the consonant sounds described. In here, you look at the consonant sounds, you have a list of voiceless sounds and a list of voice sounds. Voiceless sounds, you have p, t, k, f, th, s, sh, ch, and so on. But among the voiced sounds, you have b, d, g, b, d, z, j, and j. If we move on to the next slide, here I have among voice sounds m, n, n, l, r, w, and y. Well, that seems pretty simple, isn't it? Let's look at a few of these sounds which occur in pairs. The sounds which you have in bat and pat, p, b. There is a description given out here for you to see how to pronounce or articulate these sounds. Just bring your lips together, press them firmly, and then blow out air. You have a few example sentences out here. Bhaskar brought a big breakfast. So each of those words begins with a b sound, which is a voice sound. Similarly, you have another sentence which has all p's out there. Prakash put purple paint in the pool. you can have fun while you're reading out these sentences aloud. Those are video clippings again for your help, which clearly depicts to you how does one hold their lips while articulating these sounds per and bur. You can see the lady out there where she's pressed her lips firmly together in order to articulate per as well as bur.
Pa, bab.
This gives you further examples on per and bur sounds.
Pat, pull. Bat, bone, beach, bush.
Let's move on to ter and der. How do we get these? Remember, we talked about the other organs of speech. Move your tongue, the tip of the tongue, to the teeth ridge that is behind the teeth. And you can say ter and der. For example, you have these two sentences. Dravid's daughter didn't dance, but Dravid's dad did. Or Tom bought a tub of butter. Over here, tub, Tom, bought, butter, all of them have ter sounds. How did I get it? Just placed my tip of the tongue behind the teeth, pressed it firmly there and blew out air. For examples on ter and der.
Ten, den, tad, dad, tip, dip.
If we move on to kerger, how do we get these? Just touch the back of your tongue to the roof of your mouth. Now you would get ker and ger. Did you get it? Yeah, that's it. It's as simple as that. You just have to try and push the back of your tongue towards the roof of your mouth and then blow out air. The king cooked the carrots and the queen cut the cake. Grandma gave the guests eggs and frog's legs. Well, I'm sure your grandma is not going to make that. Someone from China must have done that. Alright, here you go. You have more ker and ger sounds coming in with a lot of examples. Notice the difference. One is voiceless, the other is voiced. Let's now understand how nasals are produced in English. We have three nasal sounds, m, n, and n. How do we pronounce these sounds? Well, they are pretty much similar to per, bur when you're talking about ma, because you close your mouth firmly and press your lips really close together, like in the case of per and bur, and blow out air. But the difference is the air goes out from your nose to get this sound rather than from your mouth. You can actually put your finger in front of your nose to make out that indeed, otherwise it's not a mer sound. Please remember. Mum made me move my models. You can try saying this and you feel the air rushing out through the nose. Here you have no sound again. The picture out there shows you how the tongue is pressed at the alveolar ridge, that is the teeth ridge, just behind the upper front teeth. And then release air, not through the mouth again, but through your nose, and you can get n sound. There was no one on the moon on the 9th of June. This brings us to an interesting sound in English, which we would not find in our Indian languages. Do not mistake it as a combination of n, g, though in spelling that's how it's presented most often. Do not combine those two sounds and try to bring it. Do not say ng. That's a common mistake. It's ng. How do we get this? Touch the back of your tongue to the rear end of your mouth and then release, as we spoke earlier, the air through your nose. We perceive that there is a g there. Yes, there is a G in spelling, but not when you're pronouncing it. It's a sound. This brings out the distinction between G and the nasal sound Both of them have similar articulation, that is, the back of the tongue touching towards the soft palate. In the case of G, we release air through the mouth. In the case of we release air through the nose. Do not treat, as I mentioned, N and G as separate sounds when you're looking at words like bring, sing, and thing. It's just one sound. That N and G in spelling just reflects or represents one single sound in English, that is You have various examples out here which are distinguishing between the three nasals M, N, and Let's move on to R sound. Just remember, do not let your tongue touch the top of your mouth when you say R. That's a common mistake most of us tend to make. Of course, let me tell you, there are different ways in pronouncing or articulating the sound R. When we're talking about different Englishes, for instance, Americans' way of saying R is different from the British way of saying R. Of course, we as Indians would choose to say it in various ways. But let's look at how do we say it. If it's an American way, we would take the tongue to touch the roof of the mouth, and then we fold it and we can roll it against the roof of the mouth. Oh yes, you must be wondering, what am I talking about? That's precisely how it's produced. Let's take a word like rabbits. An American would actually roll the tongue against the roof of the mouth, and then you would get that R, that sound. But you're talking about a Britisher, they would rather lightly tap at it or just go close to it, just bunch it up towards the back of your mouth with the tip of the tongue pointing towards the top of your mouth. It sounds like a dancing exercise, doesn't it? Well, we do not really move our tongue while we're talking about an American sound, that is, it just rolls, that's it. The rabbits race right around the ring. We can say it that way, or rabbits raced right around the ring. If we move on to sound L, it's again pretty simple. You just have to touch the tip of your tongue to the alveolar ridge, that is, the teeth ridge just behind the upper front teeth. The air should pass from the sides of your tongue. Do not say la, because you're combining a vowel sound there. Just say L, L. Try saying the sentence. Clara's really clever, but Lily's a little silly. Sounds simple, not symbol, I hope, or symbol, as some of us tend to bring in a hard L instead of the soft L. This slide brings to you various similar sounding words which have the R and the L represented in them.
Rake, lake, rack, lack, rock, lock, or, all, fear, feel.
With th and the sounds, most of the Indians seem to have difficulty with the th sounds. The reason being, we tend to replace or substitute one for the other, or we make it harder. How to get these sounds? Put the tip of your tongue between your teeth and push air through the gap. For instance, a word which we often use for courtesy. Thank you. Th, th. It sounds so much better when you can place your tongue gently between your teeth and release air. But if you're not doing that, it can sound very offending. Maybe you mean thank you, but you would say it in such a harsher tone. It sounds as if you hate to say it. Well, that was in a lighter vein. Let's look at some of these examples. Tara is an author and an athlete. My father and mother live together with my other brother. Alright, let's move on to the. Before we do that, just look at the distinction between the and the. There are examples where you look at the sound, and then there are examples which also bring out the sound. Listen to the speaker and repeat after that.
Thy, thy, thought, this, breath, breathe.
This is just a cartoon figure to make us all, we are talking about so many sounds one after the other. It can get a little boring, ain't it? Well, over here you can see how this gentleman is trying to get his thirds right. So he places the tip of the tongue just behind or between the teeth. He's trying to breathe out, and then he's trying to retract, and with all the force he's let his breath go. But what happened? His teeth fell out as well. I hope none of us would have that kind of a difficulty when we're pronouncing the sound. I'm sure we'll be careful about not letting go our teeth, nor the tongue, just the air. Well, friends, this brings us to the next set of sounds, S and Z. We Indians experience certain difficulty when we're trying to articulate sounds like S and Z. But wait a minute, it's actually very simple. Just remember the hissing of a snake. S. That's it. S sound is as simple as that. Touch the blade of your tongue to the teeth ridge and release air. You would have the hissing sound of the snake coming in, and that's the sound we're talking about. Similarly, you want to get Z sound. You do the same thing, only in this case you will have the vibration of the vocal cords involved, and hence you would hear Z, which is like the buzzing of a bee. Just remember, do not bring your tongue between your teeth like you do for the and the. And do not clench your teeth while you're pronouncing S sound or a Z sound. That's going to distort it. Let's look at a few examples. It's 6 or 7 years since Suman's sister sang that song. Try and say this. It's got quite a few S sounds in there. Similarly, let's look at an example. Listen to one which has Z sounds bunched in. Zebras in zoos are like dolphins in pools. Oh wow, sounds good. Over here we have a couple of S sounds and Z sounds to bring out the contrast and also to help us articulate these sounds.
Sit, zit, su, zoo, see, z.
We're moving on to F sound and B sound. Well, the trick here to get these sounds right is press your top front teeth onto the lower lip and push the air through the gap over there. Are you ready? Yeah. Have you got your top teeth onto the lower lip? Alright, now just push the air. Here you go, the examples. Farhan found 4 frogs laughing on the floor. Similarly, if we have to get the B sound, Veera drove to Vizag in a van. Here you go. Take a close look at these 2 clippings you have. It gives you a close-up shot of how your lips should look when you say f and v. You can clearly see the upper front teeth getting onto the lower lip, and the lips are in a spread position and not in a rounded position. Remember that when you say these sounds. Now you go. Listen to these sounds which are in these words and repeat after the speaker. The next set of sounds:
fan, van, fat, wat, food, voodoo.
we're going to listen to are sh and zh. Again, we Indians seem to have a few difficulties when we're trying to get these sounds right. While it's not really difficult to pronounce these, it's where we place our tongue to get these sounds out. Remember earlier we talked about s and z. That would be produced when you have your tongue very close to your teeth. That is, your tip of the tongue would go just behind your upper front teeth, and you can get your s's and z's right. But over here, it's the blade of the tongue, not the tip of the tongue, and it's going to go to the hard palate, that is behind the alveolar ridge or the teeth ridge. That's the space it's going to go close to, and you'd have your sh's and zh sounds coming in. Let's look at these example sentences. Shaila shouldn't wash her shoes in the shower. Sh, 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 sh. You can hear that repetitively in all these words. Let's listen to the next sound, which is zh. The treasure lay on the measuring bay in the garage. You have example words. You can listen to the recording and repeat after that. This brings us to the next set of sounds. Ch and j. This is where we Indians seem to have a problem. Yeah, there are too many j's in English. Because take any of our Indian languages, what would happen is we would have an aspirated variety and an unaspirated variety. That is, I want to say something, I'd say papa, baba, mama, whatever, something like that. I wouldn't know, there isn't mama, but what we would definitely do is cha-cha, ja-ja. That's how it would go in Indian languages. But in English, you have 3 different j's coming in. But if you're with me, it's actually pretty simple. It's all very playful and fun-filled activity because the whole thing can be done using your tongue and your lips and your teeth ridge and whatnot. If you're looking at ch and j, for instance, touch the blade of your tongue to the hard palate, and it should be close to the teeth ridge, and release the air. Please round your lips and bring them forward to get these sounds. Ch, j. Hey, did you all get that? Can you feel that? That your lips are moving forward and they're getting rounded when you're saying this? Yes, that's the trick. Remember, when you're saying s and z, that doesn't happen. And similarly, when we say sh and zh, it doesn't happen so much as it happens when we're doing the sounds ch and j. All right, let's look at a few examples. Here you are. Listen to these sounds. in these words and repeat.
Church, judge,
You have a few example sentences out here. Which child put chalk on the teacher's chair? Ginger spilt orange juice on George's jacket. Well, isn't it fun to try and say these sounds? Yes, it is. This brings us to the last voiceless sound among consonants, H. Just open your mouth wide and blow out air. And you got this right. H. Harry had a habit of helping the poor. Alright? These are some of the examples for H sound. This brings us to another problematic sound we were talking about. We have difficulty with. This is the W. Did you get that? Just round your lips and bring them forward and then relax. Remember earlier I was talking to you about how to get van? There you spread your lips. Here you're rounding your lips and bringing them forward. Look at the example sentence out there. William went away twice a week. Have you noticed that I was rounding my lips and bringing them forward every time I had to pronounce W? These are a few examples for pronouncing or using the W sound. Listen to them and repeat. Here you are, where you can clearly bring out the distinction between spreading out the lips and saying W and rounding your lips and saying W.
Rat.
wow,
Most often whenever you have a dry throat, what is it you're looking out for? Is it water or water? Can you make out the difference now in placing the right articulation to pronounce sounds? The last consonant sound, Y. I know we love to say this, right? Yeah, yes. Touch the front of the tongue to the hard palate that is just behind the teeth ridge, and you're going to get this sound. We didn't use. Year sound is out there. Euros, again year sound, in Europe a few years ago. Alright? So this brings us to the end of consonant sounds. Hope you all enjoyed listening and repeating. Have a great time learning and practicing.
ఈనాటి మన ఉన్నత విద్యా కార్యక్రమాలపై మీ సందేహాలు, సూచనలు, సలహాలు తెలియజేయవలసిన మా చిరునామా డైరెక్టర్ ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామరెడ్డి మార్గ్, రోడ్డు నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.
Welcome to all of you once again. This is part 2 of Sounds in English, or rather, learning how English sounds. Let's listen to or understand how do we make out vowel sounds, and then also discuss certain common errors Indians tend to make while pronouncing English sounds. This gives you a list of vowel sounds in English. 20 of them, 12 of them which are known as monophthongs, that is single sound, and 8 of them known as diphthongs, as it's a combination sound. It's a combination of two different vowel sounds, which is of course just a single sound, and hence they are known as diphthongs. A, I, U, E, O, A, and O. Most of the sounds, as you noticed, initial sounds are all familiar to us in our Indian languages too. We know about A, I, U, E, and so on. But where you need to really concentrate and pay more attention to are A sound, which looks like half A and half, not half, but it's a combination of coming together of, inverted E and straight E. That's the sound, yeah. We do not have these in our Indian languages, and we find it strange to articulate it. But lots of English words which have this sound. We've come to that in the later slides. Similarly, you have another sound, not a, but a. This can, again, let's discuss this a little later. The other sound is like in bird, girl, world. Usually you have this combination of a vowel in spelling with the letter R in spelling, which brings up this particular sound to be articulated. If you look at girl in spelling, Girl, I and R together, there is no R in pronunciation. It's just the girl, girl. Similarly, when you say world, there is O and R coming together in that word in spelling. In pronunciation, it gives you world. And then you say L and D. You don't pronounce R at all. You're not saying world. You're not saying girl, for instance. Let's move on now to look at a few examples using vowel sounds. Look at this charming young lady out there when she is pronouncing these vowel sounds. That's one happy picture, isn't it? Yeah. That's how we're going to look when we get these sounds right. Remember, whenever you see that colon, like those two dots, one on top of the other, next to any of these symbols, that suggests length. That is, you're going to have longer period of leaving out air. They're known as the long vowels, and the others without it are known as the short vowels. Look at this distinction between E and E, or rather E and E. Just bring your tongue very close to the top of your mouth, spread your lips, and it looks as if you're smiling, and there you go, you get these sounds right. Steve keeps the cheese in the freezer. Steve obviously has the E, keeps, again the E, cheese, again the long one, and freezer, again the long sound. Right? If you want to get the short vowel sound E, place the tongue lower in your mouth. You can see the picture of the mouth and you know how you're getting these two sounds, E and E. Rima eats pizza and chips. Pizza has a long sound and chips has a shorter E. For dinner, dinner again has the short E. This is a comparison of these two sounds and examples. A again is pretty simple. Open your mouth wide and place the back of the tongue down. It's best to rest, said the vet to the pet. The vet is a veterinarian, veterinary doctor. He's talking to the pet. A few examples on A sound. Here you have these couple of sounds which are generally a little difficult for an Indian learner or user of English. O, and the next one, A. You can see her saying O. She's opened her mouth wide, and it's almost like you go to a doctor and doctor says, just open your mouth and say O. That's when you'd get the O as in hot. The hot pot was left on top. Got it? Yes. If we have to get the A sound, open your mouth wide slightly. Ensure that the back of the tongue is down and the lower jaw is lowered. A. In fact, you can see that your lower jaw moves towards your left slightly when you get the sound. The fat cat sat on the man's black hat. Did you say that? All right. A few more examples for getting these sounds right. A and O. You have a long vowel, oo. Round your lips together and bring them forward. Bring the back of the tongue up and also move your lower jaw up. Sunil plays school tunes on the Casio. Cool tunes. You can make out the oo. If you have to get the short vowel sound oo, relax your lips a little, bring the back of the tongue up and move your lower jaw up. The cook couldn't cook if you didn't look at a cookbook. Well, what a professional. Anyway, look at these pictures. Look at this lady trying to say ooh, and you can make out how her lips are rounded and her lower jaw is moved forward. How round her lips look. And that's when she was going to get ooh right. But when she's saying ooh, the shorter one, her lips are going to look more relaxed. Did you do that? Yes, that's it. Here are the examples to get these short vowels and the long vowels right. This is A. It looks like an inverted V. Relax the lips and the lower jaw and place the tongue down. My mother's brother's my uncle. My uncle's son's my cousin. Mother, the first vowel sound. Brother, again the first vowel sound. Uncle, the first vowel sound. Son, the vowel sound in there. And cousin, K. All these are the sound we're talking about. Examples for the sound. Here we are, friends, now with a very, very interesting vowel sound. It's an inverted E, as you see it. It's known as a schwa. It's like really a short vowel which is made in the center of the mouth. You can look at the picture out there, which is showing you how your lips, the upper jaw and the lower jaw are positioned. You have your mouth quite open and wide, and right in the center you can see this vowel being produced. And let me just share with you, this is the most commonly occurring vowel sound in most of the words where you don't stress the part. You would come across these when you talk about word stress and understand it much better. Just remember, relax your tongue and lips while you're saying oh. You're actually moving your tongue as well as your lower jaw slightly towards the left again, and you seem to get this, like in yeah or ah. Alright? Try and say the sentence along with me. I ate an apple and a banana in a cinema in Calicut. Where do we have the sound? Apple, ah, that's the other sound, but the second syllable has oo. There you have banana. In front of it, a banana. That's the sound. Banana. Banana. No. There you have. And here you are. A few more words where you get this particular sound occurring. Listen to them and repeat. Well, friends, this brings us to the combination of two vowel sounds, that is diphthongs. Let's take a look at some of these. A. It's a combination of A and E. A. Open your mouth wide. Move the front of the tongue up and the lower jaw upwards. I like it when it rains. There you have. Do not mistake that like has this sound. It has a different diphthong. Rain has this diphthong. And let's listen to some of these examples and repeat. Now here you are. I. Like when you're telling somebody, I am so and so. I. It's a diphthong. Open your mouth wide again. Curl the front of your tongue and move it upwards. And move your lower jaw up. I lie on my right. I, then lie, again, right. All these words have this sound out there. You have another interesting diphthong, oi, like in toy. Look at the example sentence out there. Say it after me. Boys enjoy noisy toys. You have those example words out there which have this particular sound. O. Start with your mouth relaxed. Move lips to round shape. Move the back of tongue up. Move the lower jaw up a little. Rama knows John found Sonal. Where do we have this? Knows, phones, Sonal. All these words have that O as in snow. Look at those examples given out there. This is the ow as in how. Let's listen to this example sentence. Say it along with me. Vani counted cows coming down the mountain. Counted cows coming doesn't have the word, sound. Down mountain. Got it? Look at all those examples out there. Now, air. Take care that all the squares are together. Care. It's not care. Care. Square, not square. That's how you would bring in diphthongs into English and make you sound English. The popular joke we always share is, let's speak English and not Tinglish or Hinglish. That is, if a Telugu were to speak English and you bring in your Telugu accent into it, it's Tinglish and not English. Similarly, when it's a Hindi speaker using English or speaking English but bringing in some Hindi sounds, It's English and it's not going to be English. So I'm sure all of us are seriously thinking about speaking English and not Tinglish or Hinglish. This brings me up to the common errors which we tend to make. And let's take a look at some of these and learn to avoid these and learn to speak English and not, as I mentioned, repeat, Tinglish or Hinglish. Well, friends, here we have a few interesting examples. I'm sure you heard people say this. Let me just repeat them and you can come along with me. Well, if you hear someone saying train, what they mean is train. It's like I'm reminded of my class a few years ago when I had one of my teachers, with great respect to my teacher, saying, "Hey, we're talking about Shakespeare today." And he started talking to us about Shakespeare's omelette. And some of us had a major problem understanding him. We said, "What is he talking about? We heard that Shakespeare's written a lot of plays, and there are lots of popular plays, but omelette? We never knew that Shakespeare had anything to do with omelets." And it took us quite some time to understand what he meant was Hamlet. Well, I'm sure now you can understand why it's important for us to get the sounds right so that you don't confuse anybody, nor do you get confused. Similarly, you're trying to tell someone that you're going to the tailor, but then you say Tyler. You don't know whether you're mentioning someone's name or whether you're actually mentioning someone's profession. Similarly, you're describing or you're saying you're unable to go somewhere because of the rain, but you say Raine or Reinu. They would get confused whether you're referring to somebody or something. Similarly, as I mentioned earlier, water can sound as water. See, one is it can confuse the other people. The other danger, my dear friends, is given all your professional degrees, given your education, when you pronounce sounds in that way, it actually makes you sound as uneducated and illiterate people, and the respect which you're going to command from the others doesn't seem to come through. So it's really important for you to pronounce the sounds of a given language correctly so that they would respect you when they hear you. First is they would understand what you're trying to convey. Secondly, they would really respect you for what your learning is. Another example out here is which. It can be mispronounced as which. You have a few more examples out here. Way instead of way. Or people would say yo, where the y sound could be missing, and you say hello, dirty fellow kind of stuff, which you must have heard many times. Well, a word like little can be mispronounced as little, or whatever. I'm sure you'd have more examples to come up there. A word which all of us love to say can be mispronounced as love. Similarly, you can have 5. You're referring to a number, 5, but you go ahead and say 5. You can make out the difference, right? Operation, for instance, can be mispronounced as operation. 12 can be mispronounced as 12, and so on. Let us now take a look at what actually creates these incorrect forms coming in. Let's look at some of these variations or certain strategies people adopt to bring in incorrect pronunciations. Some of us tend to convert t and r sounds to what we refer to as retroflex variants. What happens here is the tip of the tongue touches the hard palate, that is almost in the middle, instead of touching the teeth ridge, that is, your tip of the tongue actually made a longer journey, longer distance it covered, and went behind the alveolar ridge, whereas it should actually stay with the teeth ridge, just behind your upper front teeth. And what happens as a result is your t, d, l, n, and so on get converted into harder sounds. For instance, when you want to have a word like tell, you can, if you stress on both t as well as l, it becomes tell. You don't have to bring out the hard sound there. You just have to say t and l. It's as simple as that. Similarly, if you have a word like lorry, you bring in more drubbing or more focus onto r. What would happen is lorry. Again, a distortion out there. An interesting sound substitution which most of us Indians tend to do. In fact, you can spot one right out there where instead of s, I put in a z, vice versa, instead of vice versa. We tend to get confused, or we substitute one for the other. A j sound can be used instead of z sound. So you hear most of the Indians would say, and especially Telugu speakers of English would say, instead of zero, they would say zero. This is simpler and easier because it goes back to our own sounds in Telugu language. Watch out next time you want to say zero or zebra or zoo. Because if you want to say Jew, people won't know whether you're calling out for a dog or whether you're referring to a place where animals are kept. Similarly, z sound sometimes gets substituted with j sound. For instance, you're talking about an individual. You say Raju, but you make it as Razu. So watch out, friends, and be careful. We talked about this earlier when we were discussing consonant sounds. And we also looked at this when we brought out the w and v distinction. You have a lot of examples out here. White becomes white. Wine becomes wine. In fact, both are English words. Wine is talking about, wine in fact is brought from the grapevine. Went becomes went. Water becomes water, and so on. There is also replacement of sh and j with z and j. Why does this happen? This happens because most of our Indian languages do not have these sounds, as I mentioned in the lesson on consonant sounds. Treasure, for instance, becomes treasure. Measure becomes measure. Pressure becomes pressure. We talk about pressure cookers and not pressure cookers. What a world of difference it makes. Doubling of consonant sounds is another problem we observe. Drilling becomes drolling instead of drilling. Another major problem which is observed across states like Bihar, Orissa, Bengal, and so on is consonant clusters pronunciation. School, for instance, becomes iskul or uskul or sakul, and so on. Third, the again, we talked about it earlier, we double it up and this can create confusion. Damsels, for instance, can be heard by native English speakers as damsels, which means beautiful girls. And we tend to add this g to the sound ng. So ringing becomes ringing. A few more examples for you how we tend to bring in the verb consonant clusters together. Like l, m, n becomes l, m, n. So button becomes button. Meter becomes meter, and so on. We also tend to bring in monophthongs instead of diphthongs. So day becomes day. Coats becomes coat. Well, friends, this brings us to the end of the lesson, and I have a few suggestions to help us learn to speak English better. You can use tools like talking dictionaries, which are available in the market today, Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary or Oxford Talking Dictionary. It's fairly simple. You just have to install them or get one of those, put it into your computer, either in college, school, or at home if you have one of those computers, and click on, just plug in any word you want out there, and you can listen to its pronunciation, and you can repeat after that, and you don't have to worry about, do I have it right? So, and they're also very cost competitive. You don't have to worry about the pricing. That's the use of technology, friends. Make use of it. And I would like to bring to your attention, start listening to news instead of watching news on television. While you're having your breakfast in the morning or in the evenings before you go to bed, just tune into news. But please do not watch the newsreader. I know they look wonderful, but for your purpose, it's more important to concentrate on how they pronounce English. And I'm sure you enjoy your Walkmans and Discmans and so on. We'll try and listen to some of these wonderful, catchy English songs, and you'll be able to bring in your sensibility and sensitivity to English sounds. Thank you all. Hope you all enjoyed this. Had great fun articulating English sounds. All the best for everyone. Bye-bye.
ఈనాటి మన ఉన్నత విద్యా కార్యక్రమాలపై మీ సందేహాలు, సూచనలు, సలహాలు తెలియజేయవలసిన మా చిరునామా డైరెక్టర్ ఆడియో విజువల్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ రీసెర్చ్ సెంటర్, డాక్టర్ బిఆర్ అంబేద్కర్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ, ప్రొఫెసర్ జి రామరెడ్డి మార్గ్, రోడ్డు నంబర్ 46, జూబ్లీ హిల్స్, హైదరాబాద్ 500033.